Welcome back everybody to my channel. And by welcome back, I mean welcome to my channel because this is the first video. But my name's Hannah. It is very nice to meet you. You probably don't know me, but I make primarily most of my content on Bookstagram. I have a pretty small following, but I do enjoy it and I read a lot. Different genres: literary fiction, romance, fantasy, romantasy, classics, nonfiction. I really just enjoy reading. I enjoy the act of reading and I have since I was a child. If that's you, welcome. If you're someone who just wants to get into reading, welcome. I think that everybody can find joy in reading, regardless of whether you think yourself a reader or not. It's all about finding the genre that works for you. Today is just a July reading wrap up. If you want, you can follow me on Goodreads, follow me on my Bookstagram, and subscribe here. In the month of July, I read 7 books. Of those 7, 3 of them were romance, 2 of them were fantasy, and 2 of them were historical / literary fiction. So here are the books that I read. Mistakes We Never Made by Hannah Brown, Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid, Reckless by Lauren Roberts, Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter. This one was an ARC, which means an advanced reader copy. So it was sent to me by the publisher ahead of time because it's not technically published until September. Powerful, which is the Powerless Trilogy novella, Butcher and Blackbird, and Daisy Jones and the Six, again by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So Mistakes We Never Made by Hannah Brown is a romance, sort of rom-com, and it's actually it's her debut fiction book. So she did write a non-fiction book called, I want to say, God Bless This Mess. Haven't read it, but I did actually watch her season on The Bachelor.
Whoa!
So I was interested. I did get an ARC of that one. So this was an ARC. It had already been published. I did actually listen to most of it. Overall, I gave this one a 3.5. Although going back, I think I would give it a 3. The reason why I think I would go back and change the rating is simply because it just felt very tedious. I think back about that book and I'm almost like, it felt like a little bit pointless to read. And I mean that not in a mean way, but kind of, I guess. This book is like an adventure rom-com. The main character, Emma, goes on a trip for her friend's bachelorette weekend. It's actually technically a destination wedding, sort of. Not Palm Springs, is it? No, I think it's like Malibu. A destination wedding in Malibu. It's so hard to describe how this book happened, like what happened. Basically, it's an enemies to lovers. Enemies to lovers, okay? I'm gonna go through my review real quick. The reasons I did like it, first and foremost, I thought that it was kind of fun. It was an adventure romance, so they had to go on this kind of like long road trip at one point. And that's kind of the whole book. That was pretty fun. I thought that, honestly, the writing was pretty good. I was very hesitant to read this because I was thinking she's a reality TV star, and I know, don't judge a book by its cover, but we all judge books by their covers. That's literally what I do when I walk into a bookstore. But I genuinely think I was nervous that it was going to be poor writing because I've read my fair share of bad books. I was genuinely surprised. She actually has pretty good prose, not poorly written, which I liked. And I do think that it was very unique. I don't think I've seen many books like this. However, I will say it just didn't do it for me. I found honestly most of the main characters annoying. There was one side character who got maybe like 20 lines of dialogue total in the book, and she was my favorite character. And the rest of the characters just genuinely bothered me. It wasn't until the 90% mark that they started having genuine mature conversations and trying to work through their stuff. Do I think you could skip this? Probably. But I mean, it's like a fun little rom-com. I wouldn't rule it out completely. Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This was my first TJR read, and I was genuinely so surprised. I gave it 5 stars. I did hybrid read this, so I was reading it, but I also did listen to a lot of it. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought that it was emotional, it was complex. I think my biggest thing that I've learned in the TJR writing universe is that she genuinely writes good books. She writes well. And one of the big things that I've noticed for me is that she writes a book like a book.
My favorite thing about the movie is like it feels like a movie.
film, movie.
She doesn't write for tropes, is what I mean by that. She doesn't go into it saying, I want this to be an enemies to lovers, I want this to do blah, 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 only one bed. If you asked me to name 3 tropes in one of TJR's books, I genuinely would be like, I don't know. Because the books flow in a way that doesn't feel like the books nowadays. We become really hyper focused on tropes, and a lot of my reviews on Bookstagram, I do focus on tropes, and I love a good trope. If you tell me there's enemies to lovers in something, I'm gonna read it. It was so refreshing how she didn't go into it thinking, I want this trope and this trope. She wrote the story. She went into it to write a good story, and that she did. I could see where people could find this book a little underwhelming and boring. I didn't see it that way. Reckless by Lauren Roberts. This is number 2 in the Powerless trilogy, and I gave Powerless 5 stars. Did I give Reckless 5 stars? I did give it 5 stars. I just really enjoy the romance aspect of it. I enjoy the challenges that they have to go through. I think they're interesting. I think it's fun. Do I think it's the most amazingly crafted piece of art ever known to man? No. But I don't have to preface a book by saying that. That's the only time I'm gonna do that. It's a fun fantasy read. A lot of people will say, I don't wanna read Powerless because it's just blank, blank, and blank put together. Like, they'll take other books and they'll say, it's this, it's this, it's this. You guys realize that like fantasy tropes and plots existed before certain books. Trials existed before The Hunger Games. Factions existed before Divergent. We gotta be thinking here, people. I don't like it when people go into books and they're like, I don't like this because it's copying this and this and this. Just enjoy it. Just have a good time. That's what these books are. Reckless was a good time. I was screaming by the end. I literally threw my book on the floor and screamed 5 times by the end. And I knew how it was gonna end. I didn't know like ahead of time, but I guessed the ending because it was kind of obvious. It wasn't like the craziest, like, I was furious. And that's the big thing for me why it's a 5 stars. Every single time I finish one of her books, I genuinely am dying for the next one to come out. Nothing like the movies. This was, again, book 2 of Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. I love Better Than the Movies. I gave Better Than the Movies 5 stars. I was giggling, kicking my feet, reading Better Than the Movies. It took me back to what it actually genuinely felt like to be in high school, and I loved that so much. Nothing like the movies. I did enjoy. I did give it, I want to say I rated it, actually don't think I even rated it. I rate it a 4.5 stars. I didn't like certain aspects of how the characters developed. I did enjoy the fact that, you know, we do see that character development and like it's pretty accurate to what would really happen. I mean, if you went through a breakup and you were this really big hopeless romantic person, I could see you becoming pretty jaded. It didn't have that like spark that Better Than the Movies had for me. I still loved it. Like, I ate it up. I think I read it in 2 days, and that was like with work and stuff. Will I recommend this? 100%. 4.5 stars is a great rating. It's practically 5 stars. The only reason I'm giving it 4.5 is just simply because Better Than the Movies was like peak YA romance, and this is still, I would still consider it YA even though they're in college. Okay, then I read the novella Powerful. I'm not gonna say a lot about this. I gave this 3.5 stars, and Powerful is in the Powerless trilogy, but it's 1.5, so it came out in between Powerless and Reckless. Powerful was good. It was emotional and it was short and sweet. It just didn't do much for me, and that's because I already read Powerless and I had already read Reckless too. So it was kind of like I jumped into that novella, and I did listen to it as well. The voice actors were kind of giving me nothing. I don't know. It just felt like I was just listening to it to listen to it. I was kind of bored throughout. So that, I don't know. Butcher and Blackbird. This is by Brynn Weaver. I was so scared to go into this book, guys. I genuinely was terrified because this is a love story between 2 serial killers. I do not do well with gore. I am very queasy. I can't do horror, I can't do thrillers, I'm anxious, I'm scared, and I hate graphic, disgusting descriptions. So this book terrified me, and I was right to be terrified. However, I did finish it, surprisingly. I thought I was gonna have to DNF. I finished it, 4 stars. not a bad rating, right? 4 stars for this one, and I think that it was so highly rated because I did genuinely like the way that the author wrote. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was creative. It was easy to follow along. It was really easy to read. The reason it's not a 5 stars, one, I think it was like a little too much smut for my personal tastes, okay? I'm not opposed to reading books with like smut scenes, spice scenes, whatever you want to call them, but I don't think that the amount that was in there and the level of it was for me. It just felt like once it started, it didn't stop for a while. But I did like the 2 main characters. I liked that they made each other kind of softer, and I did find it just overall interesting. The gory, gross scenes though, that's a reason why I couldn't give it 5 stars also. I was skipping paragraphs so I didn't have to read some of the stuff. And also the cookies and cream ice cream. No thank you. I'm so sorry. Brynn Weaver, go to jail. Go to jail for that. If you've read it, you know, and if you haven't read it but you plan on it, I'm sorry. Okay, last book. Daisy Jones and the Six. I actually only listened to this book. So Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I only listened to it, and I listened to it because I wanted to watch the TV show. And I was looking for an audiobook and somebody was like, oh my gosh, listen to Daisy Jones and the Six because they have a full cast. So if you listen to it on Spotify, it's a whole cast. Each character gets their own voice actor, and it's really helpful because you kind of have to have that. The whole book is an interview format. So it's like people answering questions, people giving accounts, all of this stuff. Because of that, you kind of need to have that differentiation between the voices. Now, I gave that a 4.5. The only reason it couldn't be a 5 for me, because I was considering a 5 star. The only reason it couldn't be 5 for me was that honestly, like all of the characters were just like grating on my nerves. The only people I liked, I think, were Camila, and I loved Karen. That's basically it. I think also there was a lot of it where I was locked in. Like I was genuinely interested in it. It's so interesting, but there were some times where I couldn't tell who was who. Like I couldn't remember the voice actors, specifically for like Eddie and like, was it Pete or I don't know. I genuinely don't even remember. But when we get to certain parts towards the end, I will say my jaw fully dropped and I had to like hold back some tears. So I think it's a beautiful book. If Taylor Jenkins Reid has 1 fan, I am her. If Taylor Jenkins Reid has 0 fans, I'm no longer on this earth. No, but genuinely, I did love reading her books, and I could totally see myself reading more books by her. I do own Evelyn Hugo, so I need to get to that. But anyway, that's it for today. That's just my July reading wrap up. It was primarily Kindle, library, Libby, or Spotify. So I genuinely didn't have a single book except for Reckless that was a physical copy. That's why it's gonna be a lot of here, 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 here popping up. But I hope you enjoyed, and I need to stop looking at the viewfinder and start looking into the lens. I know that's a problem. I'll get better at that. But I hope you enjoyed, and if you read any of these books, let me know what you thought, or if any of these books are in your TBR and you have any other questions that I didn't touch on, feel free to ask them, or if you just want to say hi, please comment and subscribe and like, and I love you so much. Bye.